The Cubs haven't won a World Series in 108 years. That's a long freaking time. To even consider that they upped their game enough this year to win is blasphemous. Even more so if you think it was luck. It sure as hell wasn't. But then again, that's easy for me to say. I know the whole story. You don't. But hey, maybe you're not a sports fan, and you don't really care about baseball. That's fine. I'm not asking you to. I'm just here to tell you about all the fucked up shit my dad did to ensure that this game would go off without a hitch. Before I get to that, let me give you a little background. Sports is everything to my family. We live, breathe, eat, and sleep it. My mom, dad, uncles, aunts, and cousins. All of them. It's how we talk, how we bond, and how we put up with each other. To be honest, with all of the shit talking that goes on in my family, sports is probably the only thing keeping us together. Of all the sports that we watch, baseball is our favorite. Always has been. It's in our blood. We watch every game we can of the team that we follow, the number one team being the Chicago Cubs. That's right, we're die-hard Cubs fans, and it's all because of our heritage. You see, my family and I live on the East Coast. All you ever hear is Red Sox this and Red Sox that. We don't follow that trend. If you trace my lineage back to the dead ball era, you'll find Frank Chance, a Cubs infielder. He also played for the New York Yankees, but we don't talk about that. We're proud of the mark he made on our team's history, and our families. But enough about ancestry. Let's get to why we're here. It was September 2008. The Cubs were leading the National League Central Division, and were in the middle of a game against the Cardinals. If they won, they'd make it to the playoffs. Tensions were running high in my house that day. Relatives were over, watching the game. We were all getting loud and rowdy. We needed this win. Bottom of the ninth, my dad pulls out an old foam finger and puts it on. It was apparently the one his father had bought for him at his first Cubs game. Long story short, the Cubs end up winning 5-4. It was a huge win for us, and we all got up and cheered in celebration. We were ecstatic. Next game, Cubs lose 3-0 to the Dodgers. Talk about a freaking buzzkill. Anyway, at the end of the game, my now depressed dad pulled out his foam finger again. He stares at it for a few moments before putting it away. Looking back, I realized that this is where it all started. My dad hadn't worn the foam finger during his Dodgers game, so he convinced himself that that's why the Cubs had lost. After all, they won when he had it on. Makes sense, right? Well, to my dad, it did. And so began my dad's superstitious behavior. He wore the foam finger for many games after that. He wouldn't take it off, even for a second. We all found it kind of weird, but we didn't really say anything. The family let him live in his own little world. After a while, the foam finger stopped working. My dad told me it was out of juice, and he needed a new system. The things he brought to games after that were normal, considering that he wanted a little extra luck. A 4-leaf clover, a horseshoe, and even a rabbit's foot. Anything he could think of to help the Cubs along. But he didn't stop there. After a while, my dad went a little crazy. His systems became obsessive and compulsive. He would sometimes stand on one foot during certain innings, send me or my mother out of the room at odd times, or even shut the TV off for minutes at a time. It bothered the hell out of us, but if we said anything, he'd just get mad and say that it needed to be done. It was the only way the Cubs could win. That's how we lived for years. The rest of the family stopped coming over to watch the games because of it, and we knew they talked behind our backs. We didn't care all that much. My dad was weird, but we still loved him. This was just a quirk, nothing more, or so I thought. Fast forward to 2016. The Cubs make it into the playoffs again. My dad felt redeemed. His system's working, and this was his first chance in 8 years to go all the way, so to speak. He wanted to bring this one home. He told me that we were going to win the series, like it was a sure thing. He was right. During each and every playoff game, my dad was not present. We had to watch it without him. He would show up when it was over and ask for the score. Every game the Cubs lost, he'd say, "I need to up the ante," and provide no context as to what he meant. For the ones they won, he would look smug as hell, and he wouldn't even watch it after, even though we recorded it for him. He was acting really strange, but my mom and I had dealt with his weirdness before. We just went with it. By Game 5, I was getting a little worried and super curious. My dad wouldn't miss the first Cubs series in over 100 years. How could he just turn away from that? I decided to follow him out of the house and see what he was up to. I watched from the window as my dad slipped out of the back door during Game 5. I was beginning to think his method was just not to watch the game. But then I noticed him sneak into the shed out back. When the coast was clear, I snuck out there too. I darted to the backside of the shed and peeked into the tiny window that was back there. What I saw was nothing short of unsettling. The shed had been cleared out. No tools, no lawnmower, nothing. On the shed floor was some sort of pentagram, painted in red. Off in the corner was my neighbor's dog, bound and gagged. That dog got loose every once in a week and would always come straight to our yard. My dad hated it with a passion, and now he had captured it. For what reason, I did not know. Feeling a bit uneasy, I watched as my dad paced around the shed, reading an old book. He looked so focused to the point that it was scary. He wasn't himself, that's for sure. At least not the happy-go-lucky guy that raised me. Eventually, my dad grabbed the dog and placed it into the center of the pentagram. It flailed about, but he had it tied up well. He then grabbed what looked like a hunting knife from his pocket. My heart sunk. I wasn't sure what he was going to do, but I knew it couldn't be good. It most certainly wasn't. My dad stabbed the golden retriever several times while muttering something under his breath. I watched in disgust as the dog struggled to break free while my father mercilessly slaughtered it. I almost upchucked it right then and there. I know he hated the damned mutt, but how could he do that? I cautiously made my way back to the house and went up to my room. My mom reminded me that the game was on, but I didn't care. I told her I had come down with something. I wasn't exactly lying. I felt pretty damn sick after seeing what my dad did to that poor animal. I lay there in bed for a while thinking about what I'd seen. I couldn't get it out of my head. I needed to know why. As such, I waited for my dad to come back in. That's when I snuck back out to the shed with a flashlight, hoping to find some answers. I made it past my parents, no problem. They were inside talking about the game for a while. I pranced over to the shed and tried the knob, but it was locked. Luckily for me, the shed door wasn't all that sturdy. After a few tries of slamming into it with my shoulder, it opened up. I quickly illuminated the shed's interior with my flashlight. On the floor was a pentagram, along with droplets of animal blood. The dog was gone. I assumed that my dad buried the body out back. I looked around a bit more until I found something tucked away in the corner. It was the book. I scrambled over to it and picked it up with haste. I had to know what was in it. I read the title, contents, and skimmed through a few pages. From what I gather, it was some sort of catalog of demonic rituals. The rituals in question were meant to bring forth luck in great quantities. My dad had folded some of the pages to save his spot. He did that with everything he read. Books, magazines, the newspaper, etc. I went to the pages and read along. It seemed that my dad had been chanting specific incantations while sacrificing animals. It started small but eventually led up to the dog. That was the biggest animal yet. The book described using larger animals in succession as the key to attracting a temporarily perpetual state of prosperity. In other words, so long as my dad made sacrifices, his lucky streak would keep going. At least, that's what he chose to believe. In any case, I was stunned when I read the last page my dad had folded. This ritual involved a human sacrifice. My heart fell back in my chest while I read. Was that my dad's endgame? Was that part of his stupid system? No, it couldn't be. My dad would never kill someone. That's ridiculous. He's a good man. Surely baseball wasn't this important to him. He couldn't go that far. But maybe he did. The World Series is over and the Cubs won. My dad left the night of Game 7, but I didn't follow him. I couldn't. He took his car. I didn't know what to do. I could have called the cops, but he's my dad. I had to believe he wouldn't do something so heinous, so wrong. I mean, could someone really obsess over something so much that it keeps them from thinking clearly? Could it cloud one's judgment to such a degree that they could do the unspeakable? Could mere superstition morally derail someone so quickly? I can't be sure. For now, I'm trying to pretend that the whole ordeal never happened. My dad seems happy, and I guess I am too. Kind of. The Cubs won for the first time in over a century. It's a time to celebrate, not dwell on uncertainties. That's why when a local woman was reported missing and popped up on the news the other day, I ignored it. I'm sure it's just a coincidence. It has to be. Or is it? Regardless, I can't look him in the eye anymore. Not after what I witnessed. He isn't the person I grew up with. He isn't my dad. He's a man consumed by what he loves. Not family, but sports. Baseball drove him to kill, and I can't forgive him for that. The entire town is searching for a missing woman, and my neighbor is out every night looking for her dog. Meanwhile, my dad rests easy, knowing the Cubs won the World Series. They say a man only smiles in his sleep if he's truly content, but my dad isn't a man. He's a monster. Hey, what's up? It's Wormy. I hope you enjoyed that video, and if you did, here's 2 more videos that you might want to check out. Also, please feel free to subscribe, as it'll keep you up to date with any new content I put out there. Anyway, thanks for watching, and thanks for the continued support. See you in the next video.